Thanks a lot for being here. We have more guests and friends than when we started, so that's a very good sign. I think my guests need no introductions yet. I'm going to introduce them a little bit. First of all, we are delighted to have the director of this documentary on my right, Sumit Khanna. He's the author of many different documentaries, award-winning documentaries on a variety of issues. He's going to tell you what exactly. We're going to give him the floor without further ado. But before that, briefly, we also have the pleasure to have two very prominent lawyers here. Professor Mohan Gopal, who you've seen in the documentary itself. Mohan is a leading scholar. He used to be the legal counsel of the World Bank, actually, the chief counsel of the legal department, I think, of the World Bank, to be precise. He used to be also the vice chancellor of Bangalore National Law School, but nothing less than that. He used also to be he used to be the director of the Judicial Academy. So extremely knowledgeable. Mohan, thanks so much for being here. And on my left, an equally prominent lawyer, A.K. Ganguly. A.K. is a lawyer, senior lawyer to the Supreme Court of India. He's a specialist of many things, I must say. Arbitration being one of his specialties, but he's done a lot of work on many different areas, many fields of law, constitutional law, public interest litigation. And he's also a very international lawyer, a member of many different bodies. Let's say he will say that better than I do. But again, thanks very much for being with us.
When I first started making it, I approached a lot of people. Everybody said that it can't be done. You'll never get permission. I said, but I'll have to look at it from another point, from the point of the litigants and everything. And once you get sucked into it, and when I started meeting people like Professor Mohan Gopal, that's when the entire perspective on the whole idea of justice that you probably see in the film came through. And that's how one starts making it. PSBT was good enough to fund it, but the funds ran out before I could even finish my research, because the research on this was about 2 years. And then I could kind of make the film. Getting to the courts was really tough. I tried every possible court. Nothing worked. So I just want to narrate an instance which probably, because you did see me shooting in the courts in Badaयूं. The courts in UP had just moved into the whole era of computerization and emails. I tried getting to the Allahabad High Court. They never said no, but they would just not say a yes either, and I was getting desperate that I need to do something. So I came across the Badaयूं High Court, and I got to know they knew with this email. So one day I land up there to shoot, and I tell them that I need to shoot with the chief justice, the district judge, and I'll take your interview. So he's very thrilled about it. He says, but just have an email sent from the Allahabad High Court. So I find out the day that he's not there, because he's the only one who knew how to operate the email. So I sent them an email requesting for permission, and they said, "Dekhiye, Allahabad se email aa gaya, it's come from Allahabad." So everybody thought it's come from Allahabad, and I could actually shoot in the court. I never went back after that. Probably would have been contempt of court. And then the other thing that I really want to point out is how this film, at lots of places was kind of tried to be stalled, especially with the censors. The beginning, credits that you see, the disclaimers, are all thanks to censors they put it. The first time it was screened at the censors, there was a very senior advocate from Mumbai who was the chairman of the jury. He refused to pass the film. He turned around and told me, "This is not what happens in our courts." I said, "Then you haven't stepped out of your court. This is exactly what I have seen, and I have not lied anything about what I have seen."
अगर आप उस जगह जाना चाहते हैं तो जरूर आप भ्रष्टाचार से बिल्कुल उसमें मुलविस हो जाएंगे।
आप मुकदमे को दायर करें और पोता उसका जजमेंट सुने।
So one of the characters that you see first up ahead, Rajat, the one who's fighting those multiple cases. So the chief justice, the district judge from Badaयूं happened to be in a training session. That's the time when he identified, this is my court and it's happening here. So he noted that the file numbers, he went back, he figured out what the case was all about, and within 3 months his cases were sorted. But he was resourceful enough for a judge to have taken notice. None of the other cases are still being solved. they still go on the way it is. And I'm sure the judges from those courts would have also seen this film. So there is that disparity that one does see even at that level. That's all I think.
Yeah. So the person matter in the exercise of justice, of course. There are many things, many issues from a practical and theoretical perspective in your documentary. It's extremely rich because it touches upon the vast variety of every question we teach our students in class, from a local perspective, to some extent also a comparative and legal perspective. So the first question, which is an extremely simple question, is actually what is judging? What are we doing when we judge? And this is a question I'm going to ask to all the guests here. Of course, in mind you can have three different words and three different forms maybe of justice we may address. We sometimes say that justice can be distributive. Justice can be also retributive. That's very different. It's when we rather punish the people, or it can be also restorative when we talk about and discuss, address the needs of these people. So what is judging from your perspective, Mohan and AK?
Rightly pointed out, it has all the facets. It depends on which area of law that you are thinking of. In the perspective of crimes, there are different philosophies which you have said. But most of these cases which he has shown, I must compliment you first of all for having been able to show the darker side of the picture of justice, I would put it. I can assure you that I had the advantage of being to very many courts in the lowest court of the rank of the country, though I practice in the Supreme Court. But I have been through the lowest possible rank of the court. So I have had exposure in my life of various kinds of courts at all over places throughout the country. There are much better than this scenario in many cases. This may not be an ideal scenario, but what you have shown is also correct. There are courts, there are areas where you see this. It's a reality. And I also appreciate the comments which have been made by litigants about their experience of what the justice delivery system is, the lawyers, the senior people, elderly lawyers, their experiences of life and what do they expect from the judicial system, the younger generation, how do they perceive the legal process like, and still fresh law graduates or law students in the law schools. One was teaching in one of the leading law schools. What is their perspective? So it's a mixed bag. You have all kinds of things, but your depiction is very good. I must compliment you because that's a reality. One must accept it. But there are efforts being made. It is not that efforts are not being made. Yes, the process is slow. And much depends on individual. As you rightly pointed out, one judge, when he saw, he felt so ashamed and concerned about it that he took it up. There are others who feel slightly indifferent. You have that kind of people in every walk of life. You don't have to only search them in the court. You go to a government office, you go to any ministry, you go to a university, one will tell you all professors are not working hard day and night to prepare notes for the students. There are all kinds. So, it's basically individual orientation and personality. But when it comes to institution, the point that you made it's all right. Each individual has his own orientation, so therefore he would act according to the orientation. But you got to institutionalize certain values when it comes to an institution. So from a court of justice, which is a justice delivery system, and it is a machinery provided by the public exchequer. It is at the cost of the exchequer's money, the taxpayers' money. It is the government who has the responsibility. Because in any orderly society, if you don't provide for a machinery for dispute resolution, the net result of it would be what? We will have no orderly society. The law will be taken into hands by each one, and they'll take a decision. So the might becomes the right. So therefore, this is a very serious concern. From the institutional point of view, this requires a tremendous amount of reform. It is in the process, it is in progress, and we have achieved quite a bit, in spite of all the deficiencies. quite a bit. What was the system say about 20 years back, 2 decades back? There's a sea change. Even, as I think Usha Ramalatu was speaking in the, in the clip, Usha was saying, she's right, that see, the democracy is to be performed and practiced by people. You don't expect someone else to perform democracy for you, institution. So it is the consciousness of the people of their right and their awareness of what the institution should be like. These are not meant for people. The courts of law are not meant for lawyers and judges. No. Both the sets of people, lawyers as well as judges, they exist to serve people. It is the right of the people to have this institution. They have a right to have their disputes adjudicated. So if someone is not performing that, then it is those whose rights are invaded or affected must protest. And that can come only, as you said, you must practice it and then do it. It's happening, but certainly at a pace which is not very happy. It could be expedited, it should be done.
Because I had the opportunity one afternoon when he walked into our academy to see the very beginning of the of his determination to make this film, and what a challenging and difficult task it was. I think it's just an absolute, I'm just stunned by his skill to do this, to how to capture a problem and to communicate it effectively to people. So, congratulations and a wonderful job that you've done. Now, turning to this problem, I've now spent, it's been 8 years, I think, since that movie. I wouldn't change a word of what I said there. I've just gone further down that road, as I was telling Sumit. I'm even more convinced about what the message of the movie is. I have, in these last 13 years, I've not been a lawyer. I've just been specializing on studying the judicial system. I've been to the lowest level courts across the country as a disinterested observer, in the sense of no professional interest in it. And I can tell you this is not an exception, Mr. Ganguly. This is what goes on throughout this country. And I think what I've learned in these 8 years is that there are 3 problems, 3 separate challenges of the question you're asking. For who and what for. I think all over the world. And as Laila said, I've worked for the Evil Empire also. The World Bank. I worked in the global space. I worked in the national space, and from Kerala, my home, I've learned about the local space. I think there are 3 kinds of challenges. One is justice for the rich. Second is justice for the middle class. And third is justice for the poor. Everywhere in the world, the rich get justice. They manage whatever the system is everywhere in the world. Nowhere in the world, including in the West, in any country in the West, on the United States with which I'm familiar, I've learned law there, taught law there, the poor, the really poor don't get justice. Regardless of how aware they are of their rights, regardless of what their knowledge is, they simply don't get justice. The main difference between India and the OECD countries is that in the OECD countries, the middle class has reasonable access to justice for normal interactions with the judicial system. Property, employment, consumer rights, marriage and adoption, divorce, these kind of things. You have reasonable access to justice.
Look at the large number of people rotting in jail today. Are they rich people in jail? No. Why is it that no rich person is ever found in jail? Because they get bail. Why don't poor people get bail? Even rich people who are charged with very serious offences get bail. Poor people charged with minor offences don't get bail. Why not? There is maybe subconscious but definitely deep-seated bias against the poor in the judiciary. It's not only in the judiciary, it's in the law.
Since 1991, when India changed track from its socialist path, as the judge said in the movie, to a market economy, a very large, relatively, in relative terms small, but in absolute terms very large middle class has emerged to about 200 million people. They are demanding much better quality justice for them, for themselves, in these 4 or 5 areas. And so what has happened in the last 20 to 30 years, 25 years ago the reforms took place, so in quarter century, is a separate parallel judicial system is emerging for the middle class. And in fact, it is not true to say that people have faith in the courts and more people are coming to courts. Actually, at the level of the subordinate courts, the number of civil cases is declining. Criminal cases are increasing. And criminal cases are cases where, according to in the words of a Dalit who I spoke to in Madhya Pradesh, a landless Dalit, the police take the poor to the courts to be punished. So it doesn't show their faith in the courts. Criminal cases are 80% of the courts, cases in subordinate courts. And the high courts and the Supreme Court are largely the courts of the middle class and the rich. Because only they can afford the very, very exorbitant fees charged by our legal profession to get any kind of quality of justice. And for that to change, what is required is far more radical, far more substantive, because when under our constitution and our laws, which are very progressive, if the poor get justice, that is social revolution. Judging is as far as the poor is concerned, it is to maintain the status quo. That's not what it's supposed to be, but in reality, it has the effect of maintaining the status quo and stalling the democratic change.
Thanks very much to both of you. I should say the 3 of you. You know, I agree with AK, there is much more than what we've seen in the judicial world, but at the same time I also fully agree with you. How can you be aware of your rights when you think that you don't have rights because you come from a lower caste and class and so on and so forth? There's something I would like to show you before we move to the next item of our discussion, the resources allocated to justice. And this is really outrageous. You have to know here, that's the latest budget expenditures. Mohan, you know that by heart. You've been working on it, commenting that thoroughly. Well, you have to know that in India, 0.2%, 27% is dedicated to justice, is given to the law ministry. Well, to compare, you have 1.2 in Singapore, 1.4, 1.5 in the UK and France, and 4.3 in the US.
So the students who are coming out, who are being very progressive, they are really students who are rebelling against the institutions. The institutions are not really sharing. There are a few faculty members who support them, few activities, but the institutions are not aligned to anything more than perpetuating the old feudal and colonial ideas of the legal and judicial system. So we still have a major challenge of reform of the legal and judicial system.
Mon, you were very right. In fact, I recall the university which you headed as the Vice Chancellor, that is your Bangalore Law School. I happened to be one of the sponsors right at the beginning when we started. The first group of students who came first for interning me, they were just at the second year of the school. When I was interacting with them on an everyday basis, I wanted to probe that what is their aptitude like. Because this law school was founded with a great expectation that we will be able to enrich the bench and the bar. That was the primary object, because the thrust on the new form of legal education was that. But I was quite alarmed while talking to the interns, and as I said, what you're seeing now, I'm talking about some of these early 80s. This happened. I had the opportunity to speak to Professor Menon, who was the founder, director of the institution. All that I told him was that you possibly need a different kind of an orientation. But I was quite disappointed hearing his response. He said, when you studied in the law school, you would have paid only 5,000 rupees as your tuition fee. they call it. Now these boys and girls have to pay lakhs, and therefore they have a different kind of thing. Anyway, I just could take that, but just one experience which I want to share with you. A few years before, about 7 or 8 years before, I had one opportunity to interact with the judicial colloquium. We're all subordinate judges, from Munsif to sub-judge, the kind of courts that you have been showing. And this was Haryana. So Punjab Haryana Chief Justice requested me to have an introductory sessions with them. I had allotted 2 hours time to them. Now the sessions were so interesting, and they would, all youngsters, they would not just leave me. In fact, I was missing my train. So they said, sir, we will call up the duty magistrate to stop this train for you. But we will not let you go. I mean, what I found was with great interest that judges at the lowest level, they were very bright and they were very keen, very interested. I was quite happy, interacting with this group of people. And the youngsters, I really felt it's good. I hope it continues and multiplies that approach. Thank you.